of a session on the impact of interest rate changes. And we're going to go through both an increase in interest rates and a decrease in interest rates. Now, for both of these examples, it's worth us going through the impact on consumers, that's people who buy things, and producers, that's the firms who sell things, things being goods and services or products. So consumers, producers, and the impacts on those, increase, decrease. Let's go. So firstly, we're going to go through interest rate increases and the impacts on consumers. So interest rates increase, so those with savings will save more because there's a higher reward for saving, being the interest rate. It's gone up, it's increased. Therefore, you've got two options with your income. You can save it or you can spend it. If you're saving more, you have to be spending less, so spending will fall. Secondly, it's going to discourage borrowing, and it's going to lead to less loans taken out. The reason why it's discouraging borrowing is because it's now more expensive to take out a loan. If you think about interest rates, they are essentially the price of renting money. Okay, so if the price of renting money goes up, people will rent less money, people will take less loans. So loans will fall, which means the demand for goods and services, especially big ticket items, that could be, for example, a car, the demand for those items is likely to fall as interest rates increase. You could be thinking more generically as luxury goods, luxury items. The demand for those will fall because of the discouraged borrowing. Now, the third impact on interest rates increasing on consumers is existing debts. So those debts that already exist, that could be debts such as overdrafts, mortgages, personal loans. They will now, if they're variable debts, variable interest rates involved in those debts, they will cost more to service. That's going to lead to less spending because as you have more expenses and servicing those existing debts, it means your costs have increased. If your costs have increased, then of course, from a consumer's point of view, that's me and you, a household, it's likely that your spending will fall as those interest rate payments increase. That's IRP there. So that's the impact on consumers of interest rates increasing. Let's go through consumers again, but interest rates decreasing. So now it's just the opposite of this, but it's important to go through it to understand the change. So firstly, those with savings may save less now because there's less of a reward. The interest rates have come down, they've decreased. So they may save less going forward because there's a lower reward for doing so. And therefore, as I said before, there's two things you can do. You can spend your money or save your money. If you're saving less, you must be spending more. So spending will increase. Second impact here on consumers is it's going to likely encourage borrowing. You're going to see more borrowing because it's cheaper to rent money now because interest rates have decreased. Therefore, there's more loans likely to be taken out, and therefore there's going to be higher demand for goods and services, especially big ticket items such as luxury goods. And the third and final thing to think about is those existing debts, such as your mortgages, your overdrafts, your personal loans. They, if they're on a variable interest rate, will cost less to service now. So there's a fall in IRP, interest rate repayments. Therefore, it's likely to mean if you're a household, your incomes have increased, and it might mean your spending increases, probably for those luxury goods. So that's consumers in both variations. Now let's deal with businesses and the impacts on producers, on businesses in both variations. We'll start with an interest rate increase. So if you're a business and you have existing debts and interest rates increase, you may have to have higher interest repayments now. So therefore your interest costs are going to go up. That's a problem for a business. It might mean you're less profitable. Now the second thing is you are going to be, if interest rates increased, discouraged from future investments due to the fact you're going to have higher borrowing costs now from taking out those loans. This could mean that it's likely you're going to have a higher ARR, average rate of return, if you are going to go ahead with a project because you have the need to pay those higher interest rates on the cost if the investment involved a debt. So the next thing to think about is with interest rates increasing, it's likely that you're going to get reduced innovation maybe because you have less investment because you are discouraged to invest. So less innovation, it might reduce the quality of the product because of the less amount of investment that's happened, and that could make you less competitive. So all problems there from higher interest rates for businesses. Additionally, as we saw here, the impact on consumers with higher interest rates is going to mean probably less spending. So that means if you're the business, less sales from the consumers, which again means that overall if interest rates increase, it's likely to be less profitable for most businesses. And I'll talk about most businesses later on. Now, on the next side, we're thinking about producers and interest rates decreasing. So firstly, if you have existing debts and you're a business and interest rates have fallen, they've decreased, you may have less interest repayments now, so therefore your costs have reduced. That's good for you as a business. Now, secondly, it's likely to encourage the business to invest more because it becomes cheaper to rent that money, cheaper to borrow, and that means you're likely now to have the other way around, likely to have a lower average rate of return, ARR, required to go ahead with projects. That could mean if you're now encouraged to invest and you do invest, it might mean that there's increased innovation as a result of that investment, increased quality of the goods or services, and makes you more competitive. All lovely stuff. And then the third thing to think about is because consumers are likely spending more, especially on those big ticket items, those luxury goods, then there's likely to be more sales from consumers, especially for those businesses I just discussed. Now, when interest rates decrease, it tends to be more profitable for most businesses, as opposed to increase in interest rates is less profitable for most businesses. But that's not all businesses. One example, maybe a bank. If you're a bank, which is a type of business, actually you tend to be more profitable when interest rates increase, and you tend to be less profitable when interest rates decrease. The other thing to think about is if you do A-level business, well, it could be that if you are in an environment where interest rates are increasing, then you are likely to be really worried about your gearing ratio if it's pretty high, so you might want to bring that down. Also, if interest rates increase, you might think about your capital structure and you might skew it more towards, in the case of higher interest rates, skew it more towards equity perhaps because it's cheaper to service. And on the flip side, if interest rates decrease, you might think about your capital structure and you might look to be flipping it more towards having a debt-centric business. So you might be happy accepting a higher gearing ratio with lower interest rates. So I hope that helps on interest rates. See you the next session.